All right. Hello, everyone. If you can hear me, if we can start out, and we're a little behind, but at the same time, we're just getting everything set up so that everyone can hear, everyone can be engaged. And I just wanted to go ahead and introduce this workshop meeting that was put together by the Worth Group and Julia. I'm not sure if she's attending, but or if she's going to be late or whatever the case may be, but she spent a good deal of work on getting this organized. She was part of the Worth Group as well, the Worth Committee, West Region Town Hall. Most of our West Region Town Hall members are here. We have Thomas Acevis and Melinda Wright, Claudine Pedroncelli, Tim Chiara. Where's Kate? There's Kate and Linda. Is Linda here? No. No. Okay. Oh, it is. It is. Okay. And so with that little history, we went back from, I think I want to say it was around January timeframe. It was brought up in the meeting in Worth about the situation in flood zone 8, about the levees and having a potential situation of flooding. There's a couple of constituents and folks that live around the levees that have been reaching out to me about it as well during the November rainfall season, showing that the channel would quickly flow within like not even 5 or 6 hours because of the vegetation and the sediment and whatnot. And so as you probably received, there was a meeting, I want to say in presentation in December, and it was here. It was also on Zoom, and that was also on this flyer that was sent out. There's a YouTube channel, and I think if you received this, you probably watched this video as well. And so this is basically meant to be a more deeper dive of that. And we have people here that are going to be able to answer your questions. And so what we have is here we have Mr. Octavio Cervantes, and he is from New Dawn Insurance, so he can talk to you about those. We have David Richter and Jonathan Castillas from the Habematol tribe. This is for cultural resources. And then we also have Scott De Leon, Water Resources Director, Marina Del Gianni, Water Resources Deputy Director. And then we have Mr. Sergio Jimenez, and he's from Peterson Brewstadt. And so this is where we're going to go ahead and I'm going to see if Scott, you wanted to say anything just briefly before we get started about where we're at with this and where we're going, and then we can get into that deep dive. And thank you for that. You could use this one or that one, but we have to, yeah.
Check 1, 2.
All right, great. Well, thanks everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Scott De Leon. I'm the Public Works and Water Resources Director for Lake County. A lot of information. I don't have a short statement to make. I appreciate the opportunity. There's a lot of stuff out there, a lot of concerns, and rightfully so. But we're here today, Marina and Sergio and I are here today to try to answer any questions, clear up any concerns, and just be at your disposal. Happy to answer questions about what the department's doing, what we've done, plans for the future, current funding, future funding sources, projects that are on the horizon, because we have a number of those, and just happy to spend some time with you this evening and answer your questions. All right.
Thank you. And so just also, for whatever reason, one of the bathrooms was broke before we got here. And so, right, Sam, is that what they said? So the right bathroom will work fine. Coffee should be close to being done. There was some refreshments brought by our good friend here. And so we also have water. And I think there's coffee cups, and then there's also the other, you know, if you want condiments for that. So with that, I think what we'll do from here is there anyone from the town hall that wishes to speak or anything of that nature? Or? I'd like to. Yeah, want to.
So this town hall, West Region Town Hall, was started in 2017. we didn't really start meeting until 2018, and then 2020 was COVID and all that. But basically, this situation with the levies is probably the most important thing I've seen in our time doing this. This is your community. Everything that happens here that affects you, you have a say. And please, we want you to speak up. And don't necessarily expect that someone else is going to fix the situation, but that you're part of the solution. And we appreciate you all coming here. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. And so from there, what we'll do is, I don't know if there's anyone that wants to start out where they want to go to a table to speak with. Of course, Water Resources in Peterson-Brewstead is in the corner over there. So if you have some more in-depth questions for them, it's a good spot to start. If you want to talk about cultural resources, these gentlemen will speak with you as well. And so will Octavio as well. And so I do have also some folks online. So I was going to see basically what questions they have and run them to whoever has, which table it needs to go to. Also, we have a representative staff from Cecilia Aguilar Curry's office on as well, tuned in because I reached out to some of the officials in the past year to try to get them to kind of see what we're dealing with here. So so they're tuned in and dialed in as well. So yeah, that's where we're at with this, and we can go ahead and get started on meeting with the folks that are here. So, all right. And so what you can do is, well, are you coming? Are you?
Well, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start on the map,
Okay.
and Maria and Sergio are gonna stay up here.
All right.
I'm gonna start walking around and I'll be having to talk to people at tables.
All right.
Whatever. So,
Sounds good. All right. So I'll do the same.
Have your mic down.
Check, 1, 2, there we go. Check 1, 2, so we're gonna, excuse me, everyone, I don't know if you. Check 1, 2, test. All right. If I could have your attention briefly, I think the workshop is we're gonna do a different approach here with this, so. Instead of doing a table to table, it's not gonna work out because I think people have a lot of the same questions and it would be more. I think it would be more auspicious if we could have a microphone go to each table or whoever has the questions. And so so when Scott's ready, we'll come up here and we'll do a summarization of the project and then take some Q&A. That way we can get to the heart of a lot of what's going on here. And so I don't know, is Scott? Oh, there he is. Yeah. And it. All right. Right here is fine.
Right where you.
Right here is fine.
Give it this mic. Yeah.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen. Scott DeLeon, yes, Scott DeLeon, yes, sir, is going to talk now, so everybody listen. Thank you. Well, I started at this table and there was a request for information. We need some information to get started. And then there were some specific questions and we were kind of working through that and recognizing it's really difficult to hear. And frankly, I don't hear all that well either. And so it was difficult for us to talk across the table, just a small table. So I'm happy to sit here and answer questions. Answered a couple right here. Talk to Mr. Partita. I think we have a plan to move forward with you and so what I would like to do is maybe go back to this table and one of the questions was history. And there's a lot of history and we could spend most of tonight just talking about the history. And I don't really want to spend that time. Yes, it's important. But a lot of people here know the history. And what I'd like to do is maybe hit some of the highlights and then go to specific questions. So the Corps built these levees back in the 50s. The state maintained the channels and the levees up until the mid-90s, and then they decided that they didn't want to maintain them anymore, and they handed them over to the county. Over time, the county created Zone 8, which is the flood zone that was created to help fund the maintenance of the levees. The costs of things has certainly not kept up with the revenue that's created by Zone 8. The other thing that's happened is there was a ban on in-channel mining of gravel. That could no longer happen. And back in the 80s, there was a lot of gravel mined out of Middle Creek, and that no longer occurred. And so the gravel just keeps building up. I'm not exactly sure the date that the state declared the Clear Lake hitch endangered species, but when that happened, the ability to get into creek channels, the ability to do work in a creek became extremely difficult, trying to get the permits from the state to do that type of work. Anytime that you do something in a creek channel that you could potentially harm the fish or do anything to its habitat, to include the creek channel, the vegetation, anything that supported those hitch, Fish and Wildlife generally wouldn't give you a permit to do that because you're impacting, or you have the potential to impact the habitat for the hitch. So where we are today is we have a huge gravel buildup in not only Clover Creek and the bypass, but we have a huge buildup of gravel in Alley Creek and in Middle Creek. Mr. Partita said that the culvert that is supposed to outflow from his property is, he said 20 feet.
that's an awful lot of gravel. And I don't doubt for a second that it's that much. So there's an awful lot of work there that's got to be done, and a lot of permitting that's going to need to get done in order to remove that amount of gravel. At the same time, we're going to talk a little bit about history. At the same time, the county hired, a number of years ago, the county hired Peterson Brustad to look at the feasibility. They called it the feasibility study. And this study is still ongoing. And what they're doing is they are looking at the levees, the level of protection that they provide, and what are the possible projects that could be done to bring the levees into complete compliance with FEMA and the National Flood Insurance Program and all of these things, and to provide the security or the protection to the town of Upper Lake from flooding. As I said, that study is still ongoing. The representative from Peterson Brustad is here. In the last couple of weeks and working with us, we are down to 3 final potential projects, and we're going through the analysis, or they are going through the analysis to come up with the best alternative. There's a lot of things that go into the best alternative. We have to balance what's feasible. That's why it's called a feasibility study. And you can ask him, he's worked on projects of similar scope that have cost $50 million to upgrade levees. I think we can all agree that $50 million for a project in Lake County is probably something that's going to be very difficult to do. So we need to find a project that accomplishes the goals, but is something that we can afford. I know you are all concerned about the gravel buildup and the vegetation in the Clover Creek bypass, and that's the section between roughly the bridge over Elk Mountain Road and the confluence of Middle Creek. And I agree with you. The meeting that you referenced where I participated by Zoom, I came right out and told you all, or those of you who stayed for that meeting, that I agree. It is a problem. We have a huge buildup of gravel there, and we have a huge mound of vegetation that's growing out of it. Even if I had the money, I can't just go in there and tear all that out. It requires permits. It requires a lot of cultural agreements and different things. It's just not that simple. We're working on a number of alternatives. I'll share one that we have a little bit of detail on. Caltrans is looking for projects for offsite mitigation projects for some of the work that they're doing. And that section of Clover Creek, that bypass, has been targeted as a potential project where they would come in or provide funding to us to come in and remove the gravel, remove the vegetation, and then do a habitat enhancement type project. It's our understanding that is sitting somewhere in Fish and Wildlife, somebody's desk with Fish and Wildlife at the state, and it's been there for a little while, and we're waiting for approval for that. I don't know what that means. I wish I could tell you what that means, but the potential of a project there is pretty good. So that is hopefully some history, hopefully an answer to what kinds of projects and what kinds of things are you doing. And so with that, I'm sure I triggered many other questions. So why don't we start at this end and we'll just go around the room.
Could you share your brief that you talked about possibilities?
Could I start?
I just, a couple of points. I know some of the people that got the hitch approved for preservation, and they're good people that can be reasoned with. Is there, question one, is there a way that we can work through them to get an exception for this gravel mining, which I don't see any way where that upsets the hitch at all. And if you work with Peter Windrum and some of these people, maybe we get the same people back mining the gravel. And two, about 10 years ago, a bunch of people in town, I was involved a little way, got a bunch of chainsaws out and cleared out Clover Creek pretty nicely. And I don't know whether they got permits or not, but there's one thing that people in Upper Lake have, and that's chainsaws and pickup trucks. You know, this is not rocket science to go cutting down these trees, and you may know more of the extent of it than I do, but in 2 or 3 weekends with 40 people and chainsaws and trucks, a lot can be done.
I appreciate that it's that simple. And you're right, it is. It's a bunch of folks with chainsaws, and we go down and we cut all the vegetation out of there. Problem is that the county can't do that. We have to abide by permits and the rules and the laws that are in the state. And the state of California has declared that any incidental take of an endangered species is a significant problem, and the removal of its habitat is a problem. And I'm not, sir, I'm not going to debate whether that makes sense or anything. I don't disagree with you, but I need for you to understand the rules that I got to play by. And
But all I'm saying is talk to Peter Windrum.
well, Peter Windrum's not going to change this. However, now let me finish. We have been talking with our regional biologist with the Fish and Wildlife Department, and we are trying to get them to give us either some type of relief from those rules, some type of compromise. And so we are working on that to do something that would be beneficial.
So I have a question. The vegetation is so thick that the hitch are not spawning in that section of the creek. It is so thick.
Ma'am,
They're not there.
I agree with you.
They're not there.
I don't disagree. But it's not my rule. Okay, I didn't make the rule, and the person that you need to be asking that question of is someone from the state of California, and I have to live by the rules that they give me. But I don't disagree with you at all. And it's nonsensical.
That's what I'm
Yeah, and I think if there's anything that we all agree on, I agree with you.
Well, you don't have to agree or disagree. It is what it is. There's no
Okay.
in that section.
And I'm gonna say the same thing to you, that it is what it is. I have a permit that precludes me from doing that. I have a law that precludes me from doing that.
And so that's also why I asked for Rita or Cecilia Aguilar Curry to be present as well, because of these types of permits that we have to go through. And one of the things that I worked on before in the Blue Ribbon Committee, it didn't work out, but still going to try to push it forward, is the Clover Creek channel. I think we talked about that before, and I showed you that presentation. And the main emphasis on that was because of the hitch passage and whatnot, wanting to provide some sort of passage for them, or some sort of way to mitigate the situation at hand, especially with the blackberry bushes. So that was one of the ideas, but at the same time, I also mentioned to the elected officials, at the state that these permits are really hindering what we can do, our emergencies, this flood situation. I have another project in Lucerne that some of these permits are hindering, and also in Clear Lake Oaks. So I've asked them, we are already in a situation where the Middle Creek Restoration Project, that's another one. And so we're in a situation where at times, we will get somewhere with someone like the Army Corps of Engineers or Fish and Wildlife, or I know NRCS was brought up as well. And then they'll have someone new and then we have to reassociate them with them. At times we lose the time frame on permits and whatnot, and then we have to start over. And so I asked Cecilia, I'm like, how can we get to a point where you can put us in a position to either, I don't know how we circumvent it. I'm not trying to say we don't care about these permits or why they're needed, but at the same time, we need to have something in place to, mitigate this emergency so we can get these things done so these people don't flood. And so the other projects can get done and be workable areas, So that's why I've asked that. I think that's another thing that we can all do to help is reach out to them. And I continue to talk with them. I'm supposed to have another meeting with in the future once they are more accustomed to this. But yeah, I just wanted to add that. So I hope that helps. And I think Jonathan, once we get to a situation about cultural resources, we'll let you come up and answer some of those questions and talk about that.
I think one of the most people are here that are concerned about is the washing of the levee. There's 500 foot of berm that is gone. We know it's the result of the vegetation, but what do we have to do? Wait for the levee to break and then do we get emergency services? We don't have to worry about the permits? Kind of like what happened in Sacramento. Will all that disappear when the levee broke and the town flooded?
Well,
What's the repair plan?
the erosion that you see is not in the levee. It's down in the base. It's in the first bench, and there's a
Berm,
there's a whole lot of berm there,
and that's gone.
and there's a portion of it that's gone. I don't disagree with that. It's been like that. It is a result of the vegetation and the sandbar that's in the middle, that it's forcing the water around it, and we're seeing high velocities along those edges. As I explained once before, without being able to go in and remove all of that vegetation, that any repair there is actually going to be a problem. It has the potential to actually make it worse. We are working with the state to try to get something done so that we can keep that flow away from that side. And that's, again, I got running water in there, so it's a very difficult thing to get done from the state, but we're working on it.
Wouldn't even riprap at least stop the wash from continuing? I saw it happen before. And
Potentially.
property. I
Potentially,
mean, that could at least be a fix, a prevention while you're getting the rest of it done.
potentially.
And that's 500 foot of riprap. That can't be that expensive. We're paying for that. I mean, with our flood money.
Okay, so here's the thing, and I appreciate the dilemma that Scott's in and EJ, and I can say whatever I want because it doesn't matter, but what Bernie said, you can cut down all the brush that you want, that's not the problem, it's the roots. That's what it boils down to. You gotta get gravel out of the trees, up here, you can chainsaw and feel good about that and all that, that's great, but the reality is you can't solve the problem by chainsaws and pickup trucks. The problem, 2014 is when the state put the hitch on the endangered species list. So ever since then, it's not Peter Windrum's call. It's not Sarah Ryan. It's nobody. State of California. It's on the California Endangered Species Act.
Who was it that said there's no ditch up there? Okay, well, guess what? There's no red-legged frogs either, and we have to do the same thing. So I'm not disagreeing with you, I'm just telling you, it doesn't make any difference. Because when you're talking about common sense, you can't use state of California in the same sentence.
I think what it's all coming down to, and Scott's exactly right. The counties, if they did something without a permit, they're gonna get sued. They don't have the money to fight the lawsuit either. Every agency that's involved would file a lawsuit. From the smallest to the largest. So they have to follow the permitting process. And the problem is, it got out of control way back when. And it didn't get fixed until a group of citizens got together in the 70s and sued the county for taking gravel out of Middle Creek, away from the CC camp all the way down towards town. And didn't follow those permitting processes and went way below what they call Fallwig. They just kept digging and digging. That creek used to, when I moved here, it meandered all the way down that canyon, had islands in the middle, had giant oak trees. It was beautiful. And then gravel extractors went in there, and I'm not going to mention any names because they were permitted. They went in there and they raped it from White Rock Canyon against the mountain to Middle Creek Road on the other side, all the way across. And it became a flood channel. And it brought all that gravel down and pushed it into town. Very good. Just filled it up. Now, we've got lots of businesses in this county that would love to have gravel. They would go broke getting a permit. I know Sealy's just got one not too long ago, and I don't know how many years they spent on it, or they managed to get some gravel out. But what happens is where they take out, it just digs a hole that fills back up again. It doesn't really solve the issue. Logically, and in my thinking, this isn't ever going to happen because it'll be a constant lawsuit forever and ever and ever. And someday the town's going to flood. Used to flood all the time. Used to come right down Main Street. When I had the building, well, I still have it across the street, and I bought Lake Trading Hardware, and I went in there, and the file cabinets were made of wood, and 18 inches above the concrete were all stained because that's where the flood water went. Everybody came to town and lifted everything up and put it on something, and it came through town. Ergo, they built the levees to protect us. Now what's up? Now the levees are there and they're a detriment to us. But everybody's washed their hands of it that took the responsibility to build them and said, we're tired of this. We're not going to do it anymore. That's the Corps of Army Engineers. And the state said, we're tired of it. We're not going to do it anymore. We're going to turn it over to the county now. Little Lake County, they don't have the kind of money to do that with. It's almost beyond comprehension how we could get this done, because the minute Scott goes in to get a permit, like he said, it's with Fish and Game right now. They could sit on this thing for 5 years if they wanted to and hold his hand to the fire. And he couldn't get a thing done. It's going to take all of us writing letters and pounding on senators and congressmen and our lawmakers to say, get off your butts and do something good for us up here and get this thing taken care of. Relieve some of these permitting applications. We've got a channel down there that's habitat. It's a channel, folks. Habitats in the mountains and on the creeks that flow out of the mountains. We've developed this channel, we being the growth that's come up. And then the animals and stuff went in there. We have mountain lions and bears and raccoons running through our orchards here in town because they love that channel. And of course, animal control people love to have the animals. It's going to be a tough cookie to crack.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gary, for that. I just wanted to just kind of give an example of what will work with. I'm glad you said that, to get letters and different emails out to the state officials and whatnot. I just want to give you an example. Lake Pillsbury, the people that live out at that Lake Pillsbury basically have been writing letters diligently to all of the officials, CCing us in it. I want to say at least 200 have come through, and the other supervisors are like, why are they saying it to us? This is because they're making sure we see, they know that we're assisting with that, we're on the same page. But the same thing with this, I think the letter that was created by Worth is a good one. We can base off of that and get that attached to everyone's name so we can get those sent out to them as well. I'm glad Rita's here. So hopefully with this video, we'll have it on YouTube as well, so we can send that to them and show them like, hey, look, we don't want to wait till there's a flood and this thing breaks down. We need you to help us with the permits. So we'll do that charge as well. Yes, Tim.
I believe I did send one letter to Aguilar Curry's office, and I have an email response from that, but.
Excellent. We'll get more sent to them as well from everyone, the same way that the folks from Lake Pillsbury are doing, because I think that makes a big difference as well.
We're just getting, it seems like we're just getting started with our push. I'd like to also add some projects that we're working on. I told you a little bit about the Caltrans project. Next Tuesday, we have an item on the board's agenda for approval of a contract with Peterson Brustad to do some preliminary engineering for the restoration of Alley Creek, Clover Creek, and the bypass back to the as constructed configuration that was originally built by the Corps. They have all the modeling for those creek channels with the current configuration, the current amounts of gravel, the current topography, and we're going to hire them to develop preliminary construction plans for the restoration of that entire creek reach back to the as constructed, and I'll get to you in just a second, the as constructed configuration. There's been a lot of talk about a project. Where's the project? Well, the project is whatever Peterson Brustad comes up with as far as the recommended restoration or the recommended work for the levees. And I believe that a component of that needs to be the restoration of that channel back to its original configuration. We can't write a project description. We can't apply for any funding. We can't do any preliminary environmental work without some sort of preliminary plan. And that's what that contract next Tuesday with Peterson Brustad is going to do. It will create a set of preliminary plans. We'll be able to know how much gravel is going to need to come out of there. We'll be able to do some of the preliminary environmental work, and we'll be able to go to any potential funding source. The NRCS has been thrown around. Yes, they are a potential source. You can't go to them with an application for funding without a project and without some environmental work done and without some things ready to go. And so that contract with Peterson Brustad will lay the groundwork for any potential funding for that restoration project. Yes, ma'am.
How does the feasibility study come in with the more plans that you're talking about?
So this is in addition to the feasibility study, the work that I'm asking them to do, and we'll be hiring them. It'll be outside of the feasibility contract that they currently have. It'll be a separate effort, but it will also be brought into and be made a part of that plan.
So they're going to merge together and work together?
Potential, well, it's the same company.
And when is the feasibility study going to come out?
Sergio, any estimate on that? Before the end of the year. Yes. Darn it, you guys caught us. I don't. Hundreds of thousands? The question was, do I have any idea on the yardage? Maybe Sergio, you want to take a stab at that? I was guessing hundreds of thousands. It's a lot. Yeah. There was another question. Yes.
So as part of this process, one of the things that I had difficulty with on the YouTube video was understanding that the modeling was not done to the levee being restored back to its original specifications. And, you know, if you can get it back to its original specifications, then, you know, what is, you know, the impact to the community? And as part of this work with the consultant, it would be really helpful to see that model to try and assess the ramifications of that, of getting back to the original spec that the Army Corps established.
Which is exactly why I'm asking them to do that.
Yeah, and that's perfect. That would help.
Because that's gonna add, they'll be able to take that reconfigured channel and run an analysis of that. And I, again, as I just stated, I believe that that's going to be a component of the overall project that gets selected. I'm that's why I'm paying him to do, but I just have a feeling that the removal of that gravel needs to be a component of that overall project.
Scott, maybe my thinking is backwards, but if you're paying to have a project done at the headwaters, isn't that gonna preclude flooding of the lower reaches faster? Wouldn't you start at the outlet and work back this way, trying to get something done so it flows out?
So the project that I'm asking them to do, that I just mentioned, that I'm hiring them, we're going on Tuesday, that addresses the entire channel. It addresses Alley Creek, Clover, and the Clover bypass. That'll be the overall.
But doesn't that water go into the Middle Creek?
Yes.
So if that causes a severe influx of water now, because it has nothing suppressing it, and now it backs up here at her house,
So their project includes Middle Creek.
it does.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, their overall
Good.
feasibility study includes Middle Creek. Yeah. Yep. Yes, ma'am.
So in this relationship with the consultant who's going to be building additional models, do you want to extend of when they'll be able to get that back to the configuration model out there in the sense of the time frame for that yet?
So Sergio, remember the secondary project that I asked you guys to give me the proposal on, and we're taking that to the board next week, and that's for the modeling of Alley Creek and Clover, and then the bypass to return that whole channel system back to the as constructed, the original core constructed configuration.
Sure. So those are, I think those are two different things. So
They are.
that project you're talking about will come up with a design. So those will be the design drawings. And as part of the design drawings, we'll have a new, we call it a surface. So you have an existing surface, and then there'll be the design surface, which brings it back to that Corps of Engineers 1957 profile. To me, when you say modeling, I'm thinking of the hydraulic modeling. And I don't know if that's what you meant.
Yeah. We have to be flooding on. But, you know, higher order government look at like FEMA. About
Yes.
cost of insurance for the folks that are in the boat.
Yes.
So the reason, the logic here is to understand through the model, if you restore them to the way it was originally designed by the Corps of Engineers, and review the impacts, that would be helpful for us for decision making in terms of where it's going.
Right. So as part of the feasibility study, as Scott said, we have, since December, we went back and developed a larger array of alternatives just to make sure we capture some of these multi-benefit features you need for, to be successful with this state funding. And we also wanted to look at some alternatives that had less capital cost impact than just building up the levees, which is incredibly expensive. So The three alternatives we've whittled it down to now are, it's all around sediment management. So taking out sediment and different ways of managing the settlement going forward, either through returning it to the profile and having active sediment management in stream, or having sediment basins where you can go hopefully capture sediment off stream, which makes it less environmentally and culturally sensitive to grab that sediment.
So understanding this more clearly, the video that we saw in December talking about three alternatives, that's not the three alternatives we're talking about alternatives to sediment management, and that's what we're kind of honing in right now to understand that. Because when you heard three alternatives, I'm getting.
You know, the three alternatives.
Yeah, the three alternatives.
So
So you're talking about sediment as part of the three elements to that, and the evaluated by the consultant. And I would ask you about when you begin to build after this together, so we can have a high out to participate and understand.
right. So we're finishing up, writing up, and I will say, we kept those three alternatives from December. We added 8 more.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So there's 11, and we've done the initial screening down to 3 that are slightly different than the original 3. The original 3 had one that was just levee fixes, that's it.
Sure.
We don't really have one like that anymore, just because it was cost prohibitive. I expect we should have modeling of these 3 new alternatives, which will give you the water surface profile and what you would kind of need to figure out, is it something that FEMA can certify, right? End of October, I think is reasonable. There is one thing I think it's important to say, to set expectations. Sediment management alone, removing the sediment, is not gonna get the community to FEMA certification.
Is that because the issue?
Yes. And so those deficiencies need to be addressed, right? I mean, any alternative, you have to address those deficiencies that the geotechnical engineer found.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
I appreciate it.
Sure.
Oh, my name is Diane Lauber. My husband Daryl Lauber, we're here.
Yeah, if anyone who has questions, just state your name briefly so they can know.
Like to hear from the tribe. What are your concerns? If any?
Sure.
Hello, my name is Jonathan Castillas. I'm a tribal monitor for the Hobbema-Pomo of Upper Lake. So it's good hearing you guys and you guys' concerns, but we also have concerns for the tribe. You know, with sediment coming down the stream, there are cultural resources that are possibly with that. With the erosion of banks, cultural resources could be in there. I think we, here for Hobbema, we already have protocols in place to where when these permits do come through and they have to consult with the tribes, we have things in place already for the protection of these things. As long as these mitigation measures are sound and, you know, good, we're good to go. I don't think the holdups on our end. I think as long as, you know, we keep forward and they hear our concerns for this project, I think this project can go very smoothly for the tribal side. So just being aware of the history of Lake County. You know, the people have been here for thousands of years. You know, we have all the information that the state holds, they give it to us. So we see all the sites within the county. The place is you can throw a rock and you can find a archaeological site. So just, you know, making sure that, you know, the tribes are, you know, at the table, you guys hearing our concerns, just so the project can move forward.
I have a question to the tribe.
Yes.
Are they not concerned if this water keeps backing up, that it's gonna flood that cemetery?
No, yeah, we're definitely concerned.
I'm really scared of seeing coffins floating down to the lake,
Mhm.
and it's not gonna take much.
Yeah, no, I don't think we're against you guys. We're on your side.
Yeah,
Uh,
I
when
mean,
it
so you would be behind us too, let's get it fixed so the water keeps flowing and doesn't stand back.
Yeah, we can bring it to council. I'm just a soldier. I'm an employee, but, I can definitely bring your concerns out to, my boss and bring it out to council and, see what they have to say. Yep.
I frequently talk with Sherry, and I know that they share a lot of the same concerns. They're worried as well. They were, I think we met with them about something totally different, but they always accentuate that they share the same concerns as the citizens of Upper Lake. And another thing, I think in one of our other projects in a different, in Lucerne, some of the folks from, actually Robert Gary came and discussed and said that they have a plan in place. So when he's speaking of the plan that while the project's taking place, they have a plan that's set up to where if there's something found, that's what they want to know in advance. So when this project's description comes out and everything's going forward, they will have a plan to be able to go to the side, deal with their finding, and allow the project to still continue, because it's always kind of thought that the project's going to be stopped. Like you see on the movies, if you ever watch other movies or whatever, they always, we got to stop everything. Well, local tribes don't want to do that. They just want to know the project description so that they can have access to whatever it is, send it to whoever needs to receive it.
Well, you file a claim to the administrative office, and then that's investigated and. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Kate Barankama, and what I'm hearing, I believe, is we're attempting to set up a process to mitigate something that has been extant for over 25 years. My concern, based upon hearing Jonathan's discussion of the geomorphology, is that this is an interim game that we may have to repeat every 8 to 18 to 24 years, because the Army Corps of Engineers gift to our county was basically cross-threading us with the forces of the geography. Is this something that will, once mitigated, have basically, it will toll out and we'll revisit this again?
Yes. Gravel is going to continue to come down the creek with winter rains, and it'll be an ongoing maintenance issue. Yes, ma'am. Well, I don't know if I could give you a guesstimate of the term, but as former Supervisor Brown said, that the state listed the hitch in 2014, and that really precluded the ability to get in the creeks and do anything. So some things have really changed in 8 years. So that would be a guesstimate on the term.
So there is a like continue into the future, reasonable future, to be vulnerable areas to these forces.
Potentially.
But you don't know if they'll be reading the model to see if restoring it to the original, because they didn't have modeling, I don't think, back in 1959 when the Army Corps of Engineers designed this, not like they do now. And that's the point behind the question, because unless we look at the original specifications and run the models against the original specifications, then you really don't know what the risk is. Of course, there's always the uncertainty around modeling, right? It could be right or wrong, right? But that's why that question is coming up, to see where we're at, to know whether you go full on, you know, in the way that you're thinking, or will this interim with a maintenance program work to reduce the 1% probability? Because that's what we're shooting for here, is the 1%.
described by the insurance industry as a floodplain. Will this project move that change in designation closer to reality?
And
But what the information suggests to us is that this is a floodplain and flood insurance is appropriate. It's just that the industry has not designated it as yet. And I'm wondering where those periods of change in designation are in terms of coming down into this area.
I don't have the answer for that.
But we do have an insurance person here.
So, so it's not designated, it's still designated by FEMA as a Zone X, which is traditionally very low probability of flood. However, I ran about half a dozen quotes on Main Street and some other areas, and the rates would not suggest that it is still being treated as a Zone X by FEMA. I'm talking $3,000 for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. With the limit of $250,000 per building. So a gentleman over there said something about FEMA certification. Perhaps if the levy can be certified again, those rates would come down. But right now, it's not looking good for insurance rates, even though it is a Zone X. And it's a catch-22. Traditionally, if you are in a floodplain, the way to mitigate your insurance is to pay for an elevation certificate that would place the base level of the home above the floodplain. Well, we don't know what the floodplain is because FEMA hasn't issued those maps yet. Not saying that they won't. For now, everybody still has the choice whether to get insurance or not. If FEMA does issue a floodplain map that it incorporates this area and you have a mortgage, that choice is gone. You will be required to get flood insurance. So yeah, bad news on top of the present situation. I mean,
Sure.
She said, would like to ask about the maintenance of the downtown Upper Lake storm drain system, which was impacted in the 2005-6 flood.
Well, what?
Maintenance of the downtown Upper Lake storm drain system. I think that's the question.
It's a part of it. I was here. There was cement bags down in the culvert.
Yeah.
We did it all across.
The other side of the road. And that precluded the water from draining towards the lake, and it backed up the whole town, flooded the houses on Mendenhall and came into town. We found those bags after the water receded. So that wasn't that the storm drain was plugged up, that someone did it. We never knew who.
So, and our staff, if they haven't done it already, it's on their schedule to be going through all the culvert systems in preparation for winter rains.
Betsy, if you can unmute, you can, I think we can hear you. So.
Thanks, Eddie. So during the discussion in the video recorded meeting from last year, there was a person who was quoted, a John LeBoyto, who apparently has the.
Betsy, we can't see your audio. It looks like that you're still muted. If you can hear us.
I'm not muted. There's my unmute. Can you hear me now?
Okay, I think we're gonna have to.
We'll have to. Yeah, Betsy, if you want to type it in, I can do the math for you.
Okay.
Oh, she's still muted. She's muted there. Still can't hear you better. She's muted.
Linda from here.
Question?
Yes, so if the flood assessment. If the flood assessment was imposed in approximately 1999, 23 years of flood maintenance assessment has been taxed to the citizens of Upper Lake. For, where is that? Where's that going?
Well, the money is paid through your property taxes. It gets put into Zone 8. And then those funds are used to perform various maintenance things that we do throughout the year in that zone.
Have you walked down to Clover Creek
I've been to Clover Creek, yes, ma'am.
recently?
2 months ago.
Okay.
This is for a trial too. Have there ever been studied, does anybody know how far up the hitch go? Up Middle Creek? Used to go, and then I know they still do because we've seen a few of them in there, but. Because we did a creek, I'm an engineer in Alaska. We have one that flows only in the spring and fall. And it dries up and they take gravel out of it. We built gravel weirs way upstream, farther than the salmon spawn. And it stopped all that gravel from coming down, and they go up and mine it every year now. They just go take it off the weirs. And they get millions of yards of gravel. And it just stops it from coming down through the system. Once it's maintained and put back the way it was, because that's a feasibility that could be done. And it would stop all this. Well, except for the growth of the trees and everything else.
So let me add, did you get your question answered? Because I was going to go back to.
No, you know where the hitch, I'm not a professional in fisheries, but I do know moving here, we used to gather the fish, or, you know, and they used to go as far up as where Dual Ranch is. I don't know how much further, but I do remember going there, pile of, Sticky Lane, I remember going that. We didn't get help.
I could walk across the hitch, across the creek, and then they stopped the mining. And then there's so much gravel, they had to put them on the endangered species list, and now they're on the endangered species list. So you don't take away the gravel that put them on the endangered species list. It makes no sense.
I'm Paul Kolb. I would just like to know, what is the current status of the Middle Creek Flood Damage Reduction and Ecosystem Restoration Project? Is it, please let us know, what is the status? How is it progressing and when it will be done or whatever?
Sure. So we are continuing in parcel acquisition. Our grant was extended to 2028. And we continue to work with our consultant for on property acquisition. The Corps has been pressured to do something with their side of the project. We've committed our portion of the costs of the design, and our local officials have been pressuring the Corps to begin the design process. And as I understand it, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, but as I understand it, they have made a request for Congress has to approve that. But we locally continue to work with our consultants on property acquisition. I wouldn't say we're almost done. We're dealing with some challenging properties because we're into the partial acquisition process where we've had to survey where the 1331 elevation line is, which is the boundary of the project. And it's in some places significantly different than what the FEMA mapping showed. And so that's changed some of the parcels that we wanted to purchase from partial acquisition to full acquisition, relocation. It's really complicated, the process, but it's ongoing.
Are you employer, can you take it from them to make it say, all people live, and I don't think the floods, or you take it?
So the Corps, the Corps of Engineers has a requirement that the property that's within the project boundary has to be owned and fee by the local agency, which is us. So we need to purchase that portion of that property. The grant that we have has a requirement that we can only use that money on willing sellers. So if someone is unwilling to sell their property or a portion of their property, then we would not be using grant funds, and we'd have to find other funds to try to purchase that property. We'd have to utilize eminent domain and have to use other funding for something like that, but we haven't even considered that. Mm-hmm.
Our property tax pays its own fund. Is that the property tax we're paying up here? Is that being used to acquire all those properties down in the reclamation?
No, ma'am.
So they are split.
They're completely separate.
Separate. Just wanted to know.
Separate budget units, separate. They are one's over there and the other one's over there.
Okay, Elizabeth Larson with Lake County News. I want to circle back to the tribe and ask a few more questions. So I'm assuming that the tribe is aware of which areas on the levee that cross, I don't know, village sites or key cultural sites, right? So when you get the plan done, is that when government to government consultation begins? Because we're seeing in other parts of the county where this process is breaking down. So I'm concerned about making sure that that everybody's ready to go when it happens. Is it just Havana Atoll? Is it Robinson? Are there Alexander Valley? I've heard is trying to come into Lake County to do this. Who else would need to be part of that process, and when would it begin?
So when we initiate the CEQA process, and if you don't mind, when we initiate the CEQA process, the Community Development Department, following Assembly Bill 52, AB 52, would notify all the tribes of the potential project and give them opportunity for tribal consultation. So that's when that would occur.
So that's what you've already got the plan done and started the permits. That's
and I'll say for the tribe, we talk to each other, we know our traditional boundaries. So when it comes to, our area, whether it's Scott Valley or Potter Valley, we have discussions with each other, and I don't believe there will be an issue with another tribe coming in. So it'll just be consultation with us.
My name's Pat McCready, new to this area. I've been in construction a long time.
I've done some tribal projects with various tribes. Mendocino, Sonoma County. They've always been very cooperative. We've had in place the correct archaeological people to watch or a project was not stopped when we did discover burial sites. They worked with us. It sounds like the key things I'm seeing here are money, tax dollars. Is there a deadline of these surveys, studies? Is that in place? Is it a hard line deadline? When will that stop? I'm dealing with another tribal project right now that's been going on 5 years. And it seems like they haven't set deadlines to get things done and completed, which creates problems for us. I see this as a man-made issue, number one. This valley was not, built up back whenever. So the levee, Army Corps of Engineers, they don't have the best history anyway. It probably wasn't a great design to begin with. Maintaining it is the issue. So if there is funding, people need to know that. And then the other key issue is the higher ups in government that are holding the key responsibility for permitting. If that can be put out for the letter writing process, those are the people you want to pound.
There is also the question Betsy elaborated on. She stated, in the video recording of the Peterson-Brewstad meeting, there was a mention of the flood information from 2005 and 6 documentation provided by former Lake grocery owner Pat Lynch in the hands of local resident John Voita. Mr. Lewis's explanation of the blockage of outlets on the south side of Highway 20 does not address the question that she asked. What maintenance is performed on the downtown storm drain system? And Pat described removing the storm drain grade closest to the store and pulling street pieces out of the block drain. That was the rest of the process. So I don't know if that helps.
Well, the culvert system that's in the town of Upper Lake is on the county road, is the county road department's responsibility. And as I said, if they haven't done it already this year, it's on their schedule of things to do. All the crews were on some significant construction projects this year. They spent the majority of the summer working on construction, and they're just now getting back to dealing with complaints and pothole patching and prepping for winter. So they're pulling ditches, cleaning culverts and those types of things. So again, if they haven't done it already, I know it's on their schedule. A culvert that's out on the state highway is going to be Caltrans' responsibility. And I can't really answer for that.
Whose responsibility is with the culvert along Clover Creek, the drain from outside into the city of Clover Creek.
So those are water resources.
So they will be cleaned out.
Our crews are on, they were there today. Well,
Not on
Okay.
our side. And that's the one that flooded.
we're very aware of what culvert flooded, so we'll make sure it gets done.
I'm getting too old to wait on that.
Yeah, well, you call me. It'll get done. Folks, I know Supervisor Crandall will probably have some closing remarks, and I just want to say thank you for the opportunity. We'll stick around for a little while if you have additional questions. I would like personally to have a hard closure at 7:30. I've got a yellow lab that's waiting for me to give him a walk tonight, and but I will stick around till 7:30 and answer any questions. And I did want to talk with that table back there. So before you all leave.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate you doing this. I know it was on the fly and on the cuff. So yeah, let's give a round of applause for Scott Daly on Water Resources and the work they do. And I know we didn't know how exactly this was going to be designed. We just kind of came together, but it came together great. And we appreciate the fact that everyone got a chance to ask their questions and at least be heard and understand what struggles we have. We'll be continuing myself to work to speak with or actually advocate for state assembly, Congress to be keeping their eyes on this. And we've been doing that with the Middle Creek Restoration Project. And so we'll just continue beating that drum. I also bring this stuff to RCRC. I'm the representative there. And so I'll continue doing that as well. So in the meantime, continue to talk with folks that you need to. If you have questions for anyone, go to the tables. Jonathan will be here, Scott and Marina and I'm sorry, Sergio will be here, and so will Octavio as well. So again, I'll go ahead and this microphone will be basically turned off from here forward, and we're just going to be doing the workshop portion of it. So if you're on Zoom, thank you for joining in. We appreciate you tuning in with us and asking questions and being engaged as well. So I'm going to go ahead and close the Zoom down because it's about that time anyhow.